Greetings. Welcome to the Publication Support Workshop, part of the EKU Research Seminar Series hosted here at EKU. This presentation, which focuses on optimizing your publication impact, was held in the Faculty Center for Teaching and Learning on Monday, September 29, 2025, and this is a re-recording of that presentation. So the initial presentation developers included Dr. Cizmar, Associate Dean of Research Administration and Professor of Political Science, myself, Dr. Jason Marion. I'm a Professor of Environmental Health Science and a Research Fellow for the 2025-26 academic year, and Ashley Cole, who serves the university as an Associate University Librarian and our Director of Collection Strategies. So in this presentation, the first video is going to focus on an overview of EKU's publication investment. Who stands to benefit from this investment and why EKU is doing all of this, including this presentation. We'll have other videos that speak to library resources that exist for enhancing your publication impact, including some cool new publication or agreements with various publishers and Web of Science. We'll discuss in that video a little bit about avoiding predatory journals and resources at the university to help you avoid them, and how to select reputable journals. And then we'll have a couple videos speaking to the EKU Publication Fund. So one, kind of what award amounts are we talking about, who's eligible, what's the timeline, and then we'll do a walkthrough of the application. So there'll be additional videos that address these topics. But let's just get to who's the audience here. Well, our audience includes all faculty members at EKU. That includes pre-tenured who are on the tenure track, tenured faculty, as well as folks who may not be on a tenure track, such as clinical faculty or lecturers and librarians. So for everyone that we just talked about, EKU's got new publication support resources that are available to you. So I'm really excited to tell you all, if you have not already known, that EKU's got $40,000 in publication support available for the 2025-26 academic year. And this is part of EKU's $250,000 investment. And this is $40,000 in publication grants, or not grants, publication awards. These are internal awards. They're not external grants. So these internal awards, $40,000 available to help cover your article processing costs, page charges. We'll talk more about that in a future video. We also have resources through EKU Libraries. It's not included in that $40,000, where they have negotiated new opportunities for EKU to publish with a few high-impact publishers at a reduced cost. So we'll cover that in the next video. So why would EKU put $40,000 towards publication support awards, and why would EKU increase interest at the library in helping our faculty publish? Well, these are some frowny faces here. We know that we have faculty who have serious concerns about the limited few $100 we got in professional development money and having to use that to cover article processing costs. Some have even reported considering or using their personal funds to cover article processing costs and page charges. So that's a real barrier. Then we also have faculty, this is another barrier, giving a lot of time to do a lot of peer review for publishers just to try to get discounts or credits or vouchers so that they can actually afford publications. That's time they could have spent improving their teaching or doing research or writing grant applications, and they're spending it doing peer review. So it's important for faculty to do peer review. It makes us better scientists and better researchers and lets us, stay current. But when we're exhausting ourselves on this activity, it then leads to decreased faculty motivation to publish or engage in high-impact scholarly activities. I can't afford to publish in those journals, or I can't afford to review 10 articles. I don't have the time to do that just to be able to publish. So we don't want that. And if faculty aren't publishing, then they're not staying as current in their field, and they're going to be less likely to have interest in doing additional research, especially if they know that at the end of their research they want to disseminate it, and if they can't afford to disseminate what they found out or their new questions that they developed, well, it's kind of like, what's the purpose of doing research? So dissemination of what we research and what we learn, that's a very important part of research, and if you can't do that, then you might be less interested. And if we have faculty less interested in research, they're also going to be less likely to submit research grant applications, and their grant applications are going to be less competitive because they're not going to be able to demonstrate active or current scholarship and scholarly inquiry. So EKU's wanting to do this because we want to enhance faculty scholarship. We want to show that our faculty are doing quality research and that it's been validated and it's important in their disciplines, because we know that's the case. We have plenty of examples of our faculty doing these, but we just know that if we put a little bit of money behind these publication costs, we can show even more impact. That will increase the visibility of our scholarly endeavors here. And it also helps us with regards to educating our citizenry about the public benefit of Eastern Kentucky University working to solve Kentucky's challenges and Kentucky's problems and developing solutions for Kentucky. And if it's open access, they can access the scholarship. Media companies or media entities, if they're doing news stories about EKU faculty, they can share direct links so that anyone can access the peer-reviewed articles. And we know this is important within research and academic communities because this demonstrates when we're applying for grant applications that our faculty are going to be more likely to be able to share their work, and they're going to have a bio sketch that demonstrates that they're current in their field. So oftentimes, especially with the National Science Foundation and the National Institutes of Health, if we're applying for grants, the external funding agency is going to require a biographical sketch to be submitted with the application for at least the principal investigator or project director, as well as any co-investigators or co-PIs or co-directors. And they require this because the peer reviewers of the grant application, when they're scoring it, they're going to want to see, do the investigators or does the team have the skills and abilities to perform the research? And one way to see that is to see whether or not they have an ongoing record of accomplishments. Notably, do they have publications that have been peer reviewed? And it's important for established researchers, established faculty to have this, as well as even junior faculty to be able to start building this. So established faculty, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on, but they're expected to have more publications than a junior faculty member. And EKU has not always funded publications or research to make that particularly easy. So we're trying to improve in this area. So NSF often allows a bio sketch to be submitted that allows at least 5 citations of the PI or the bio sketch of the co-PI. They should have about 5 citations about their work if they have those available. And then they're often allowed 5 more unrelated to the project or related. So it's not uncommon to have at least 10 of their articles cited in their biographical sketches. And that's important for us to not only do if we're submitting a grant application, but also if somebody wants to have you be a co-investigator or a co-director, it makes it more likely that when they collaborate with you, you can help them get funding or not hurt their application. So with NIH, they like even more publications. So in your personal statement on your bio sketch, you can have 4 publications, and then they got room in their little half-page contributions to science for 5 more contributions. So you could have up to 20 just on contributions to science and 4 more. A lot of folks don't have 24 peer-reviewed publications, and that's okay. But the top funded projects at NIH, they're using all of them. So any progress that we can make so that we have a few publications cited on our biosketches if we're ever applying to an NIH grant, or if we're just a co-investigator with colleagues at another university. Our applications or our biosketches are going to help, or at least not hurt, the application review. So publications are extraordinarily important for us to be able to actually get external funds. So in our next video, we'll talk a little bit about some of the new resources that EKU Libraries has available to help support your publishing. Greetings, welcome to our second video, part of the EKU Publication Support webinar, which is part of the EKU Research Seminar Series. And in this video, we're focusing on how EKU Libraries is able to support your publishing. So the focus here is how can librarians help you find which journal would be the most appropriate for elevating your impact. And we're talking about impact. That's the likelihood that folks will be able to find your research or find your scholarship and be able to read it and maybe even incorporate it or use it in future scholarship or future practice. And how are they going to determine journal fit, or what can you do to determine journal fit? Well, we have resources available at EKU, including Web of Science and the Directory of Open Access Journals. And we also, we can use Google Scholar. So Web of Science allows us to look at citation networks to determine what's that journal's impact with respect to the likelihood that articles that they do publish actually get cited or used elsewhere in the literature. The Directory of Open Access Journals determines which open access outlets are reputable. So they're going to be looking at whether or not a journal's actually got legitimate peer review processes in place. Do they have an editorial board? And there's a variety of other factors that they use to determine if an open access outlet is reputable. And we can also use Google Scholar metrics to see how often the publications coming out of a particular journal are being cited, and you can then compare by various subject. And in many cases, we're not using necessarily one of these, but maybe a combination of approaches for trying to determine which might be the best journal for your scholarship. And a big reason why we have to do this is because predatory journal publishing continues to proliferate. And we see it defined here as opportunistic publishing techniques that exploit the academic need to publish, but offers little reward to those who use their services. So open access publishing does not inherently mean bad or evil. In fact, open access publishing makes academic scholarship available to students all around the world, researchers in low-income nations and limited resource environments. It makes research available to EKU faculty. But because of that, it does create the opportunity for predatory publishers to make false claims and try to make a few bucks off of claiming that they have open access and that they use a peer review process, which they may not. They may claim that they'll preserve the articles in perpetuity or for a period of time. They may not. And they may claim that their articles are indexed and they're also discoverable. And definitely they're always going to be collecting some money with predatory publishing. So there's some strategies and tools you can use to avoid predatory publishers. You might look for red flags, and one of the red flags is the journal's not in a recognized database. It doesn't mean that all journals that are not in a recognized database are predatory, but predatory journals tend to not be able to get indexed. Either they know not to apply for indexing, or they've tried and the indexers refuse. They may be missing editorial board information. You can't find who's on their editorial board. I'd even be worried about AI-generated editorial board members that aren't even real human beings. So you want to be able to vet whether or not the editorial board includes real people. They may be unclear in their publication fees and copyright terms, and they rarely, if ever, have an affiliation with any university or professional organization. So I would be looking to see whether or not they're actually part of the Open Access Scholarly Publishers Association or are part of the Committee on Publication Ethics, or both. These are not necessarily methods for evaluating journal impact as much as evaluating whether or not they're engaged in good faith publishing and they're using appropriate peer review processes. So take these into account when considering where to publish. If you have questions or still have questions, consider going to the website here and read a little bit up about open access publishing. You can also reach out to your library liaison, and we're more than happy to help. I'm Jason Marion. You can also reach out to me, and I'll do my best to help in that space. So one thing that we also want to discuss here about EKU libraries is our publisher agreements. These are pretty awesome with respect to the ones with Oxford University Press and the American Chemical Society. So both of these have a number of publications, most of which are pretty high impact, and if they're associated with ACS or Oxford University Press or the American Society of Microbiology, they're going to be indexed journals. And these two, the ones in ACS and OUP, they have the article processing costs and open access fees waived. So that means that we're not going to need to use as much of our publication support funds if we have faculty publishing in these, and we can still get that great impact that we're seeking. And the American Society for Microbiology journals have 25 and even higher % discounts for ASM members. So these are because EKU Libraries is engaged in subscription agreements, and because of the type of institution we are as a predominantly undergraduate institution, we've got some really good opportunities to make publishing more possible here at EKU. So be sure to check these out. Again, if you're interested in learning more about those agreements, and come back, there's new agreements that are possibly coming out this year. EKU Libraries is actively working with other publishers to be able to make it more affordable for EKU and our faculty and our departments to be able to engage in more impactful scholarship. So check out that website for more information. And in our next videos, we're going to focus on the EKU Publication Support Fund and how faculty can apply for $1,500, maybe even as much as $2,000 per qualifying publication. So stay tuned or hop in to our third video here on the Publication Support Fund. Thank you for joining us for our third video on publication support at EKU as part of the EKU Research Seminar Series. And in this third video, we're focusing on the actual Publication Support Fund, which could offer you as little as $500 towards publication to maybe as much as $2,000 or more. So simply put, if a faculty member is a first or corresponding author in a qualifying publication, we've got $1,500 available towards those article processing costs or page charges. And a faculty member can receive up to 2 awards this first year as the first author or as a corresponding author. And our committee is going to be giving out these awards until we run out of funds. And we're starting with $40,000 in funds. So we hope to be able to give out between 20 and 40 awards this year, maybe more than 40 depending upon cost. So what is a qualifying publication? So a qualifying publication is an article or manuscript that still has unpaid publication charges, so we can't fund publications that you've done a year ago or in the last few months. These must be ones where the publication charges have not been paid yet, but the article has been accepted for publication, and an outlet that is part of the master journal list hosted by Web of Science. So these are indexed journals. There are many in it. Just because it says Web of Science does not mean it is only like physical or life sciences or medical sciences type journals. So you can go to that particular website, mjl.clarivate.com, which is the Web of Science's master journal list, and you can type in journals and scroll through. So if you're trying to figure out, does my target journal qualify, you type it in. If you're interested in environmental science, for example, I type that in, and I see environmental science and ecotechnology. I might be interested in environmental science and technology, so I might have to scroll down a little bit to find it. And there it is, environmental science and technology, which is actually published by the American Chemical Society. So even if they had an APC, because of our library agreements, we could possibly or probably actually get that publication cost taken care of through that agreement. So what about social work? It's not a physical science or a life science. Does my journal qualify? What about social work? Well, social work, the first one that shows up is the journal Social Work, which is, again, it's an OUP, Oxford University Press journal. So again, that one might be one where the library and their agreement would come into play, and we wouldn't necessarily need to even spend money on it. You can already publish there right now if you've been accepted with no charge to the university. It's just using that agreement. So check that out and maybe explore that before, to see whether or not, if you want to do an open access article, whether or not it's indexed. And if you do get accepted, we have a pretty quick turnaround time. So additional funds over $1,500 are available if you've got more than just you as a faculty or staff, or you as a faculty member as a primary author or a corresponding author. So, and if you're talking about one of the top 100 journals in the world, we also can have more than $1,500 available. So this is a rate sheet that you can use that our committee will be using. We'll come back to it a little bit more. You'll notice that the minimum amount is $0. So if there's a student publication with no EKU faculty authors, we encourage them to reach out to Dr. Mike Lane. We might have some resources for them. If we've got a paper that has many or several authors, but there's no EKU first author or corresponding author, we may be able to contribute some funds. If we have a student involved, we can contribute some funds. But the best bang for your buck is when we have an EKU faculty member as either a corresponding author or as a first author. And if we have an EKU student as an author, that, particularly if they're a first author with some EKU faculty, we can get some more money. And then when we look down here, we can provide $2,000 if we have a first author that's an EKU faculty member, and then we have some student authors or some other faculty authors. So feel free to look at that sheet more if you're interested in the amounts that are available. And in terms of what makes somebody a student author, we know that students can graduate before the time of publication. So to be considered an EKU student in the application, they could have been an undergrad or grad student when they did some of the work, and they could currently be a current student or former student, but when the publication comes out, they need to be affiliated with EKU. And say they've went on to graduate school. An EKU student can still meet criteria if they have multiple affiliations. So if they're currently a doctoral student somewhere or a master's student somewhere, and they've contributed while they've been at the other institution and they contributed while they were here at EKU, it's not unreasonable for a student to possibly have multiple affiliations. And if so, they would count towards your additional EKU authors and potentially get you more funds from this fund. And if you've got an exceptional publication, so say you're going to be disseminating your article in one of these top 100 journals, which we do have faculty who are occasionally published in these types of journals, the committee will look at these on a case-by-case basis, and if it's in the Cizmar Journal Global List of the top 100 there, or the top 100 by H5 indexing Google Journal Metrics, we could potentially award more than $2,000. That'll be done on a case-by-case basis. And then there might be examples where there's 6 authors out there, but we don't have an EKU faculty member as the first or corresponding author. What we'll do is we have a little formula here that takes that into consideration. So say there's 6 authors, you might be partnering with a research university where their authors are the first author and corresponding author. But say we've got 2 EKU faculty and an EKU student, that's 6 authors. 3 of them are associated with EKU, so we might be able to award up to $1,000 in that example. So, take those things into consideration. So if researchers at another university don't have the resources to pay and it will benefit and they need your support, you can also apply to this publication fund. So we've got a few different examples there. So feel free to look at this rate sheet, come back to it, or reach out to me and we can discuss your options there. But we're really trying to help folks be able to publish, and we base these on some of the recent NIH studies that have been done on the costs associated with publishing open access. And these funds are available for hybrid format journals, page charges, 100% open access format journals, as long as they're in that master journal list. So in our next video, we're going to discuss the actual application process, and we'll stop this video and hope you're able to join and are inspired to submit an application here in the near future. Welcome back, and this is our 4th and final video on EKU publication support, which was part of a webinar on the EKU Research Seminar Series emphasizing new resources at EKU to help faculty have more impactful publications. So this video focuses on the actual application. The 3rd video focuses a little bit on the eligibility and the amount of funding available. But here on the application page, which you can view at eku.edu/research, where you get on the Sponsored Programs and Research Administration's website, you can click on resources for current faculty and staff and learn a little bit more about this particular fund. So you can read a lot that was also included in these videos. And to get to that, after you've clicked on resources for current students, faculty, and staff, you'll then want to click on the Info Ready Review button. And there, you'll need to scroll down to the Publication Support Award link. Then, you access the application, and you probably need to be logged in through EKU. Every time I try to access it, I have to be logged in. You might have to authenticate to be able to access this. There, you can access the PSA guidelines, which is the Publication Support Award Guidelines, budget form, and then the template that you'll need for doing the application. So the guidelines can give you some information that are helpful if you didn't want to watch the 3rd video and just want to read. When you actually click on this process and scroll down, there's also an apply button. So below the guidelines and template and budget form and the description, there's an apply button at the bottom. You may want to read over this information. You probably want to read over it. And again, access the online application by using the apply button, and you have to be logged in through your EKU account to get to this. So the application is going to ask for an application title. So you can give it the title of your article. You may start it off with like Publication Support Award or PSA : you don't have to. And then you can put the title of your article here. If it doesn't auto-populate, you'll need to type in your department and unit underneath of there. The application is going to ask some important information like what proof do you have that your manuscript has been accepted by a journal. So we're going to need evidence of that. We're going to need information on the budget form on how much money you believe you'll need for us to be able to get your article published. We'll need information about the article itself and who the authors are. That helps us understand how much we can actually give to hit the objectives of the fund. So are they student authors? Are they authors at other institutions? Who's first author? Who's corresponding? We need that information. And then, does the journal provide an invoice or any kind of payment documentation? We need to know how to make payment, and it could be the same proof of journal acceptance. It might include all of that in one, but we need to upload evidence that shows how much is expected to be paid for the cost. So the application document provides a template for a budget form. So if you're used to the info ready, some of this might look familiar. So you get a template. This is the budget information. So there's a little bit of detail we'll describe on the next slide about this. But here you'll put in your article processing charge, if you have any. If it has page charges, what are they? It might be like, $900, $300 a page for 3 pages, or $1,200, $300 times 4 pages. So what's the amount for page charges? And you'll use the space here, the justification below, to describe why you put the numbers in here. And we know that there's a lot of journals that are out there that are not in the United States, so they might have francs or euros or something along those. So if you're converting, we want to add some contingency. So for the article processing charge, whatever you put in there, you want to justify it. We do ask, you don't have to, but you may consider asking the publisher if they do any discounting. Or say the APC is $3,000 and all we have is $1,500 or $2,000 that might be available for you. You might let the publisher know about this fund and say, hey, I'm at a predominantly undergraduate institution. Do you have any discounts? Membership fees. You may budget membership fees as other. There might be circumstances where the cost of the membership fee and the member's article processing charge rate is actually less than the non-member rate. If that's the case and you want to budget the membership fee and justify it, put that in the justification, and then if you need to become a member of the organization to get the lower rate, it might make sense. Foreign currency conversion. Again, we want you to use fiscaldata.treasury.gov to provide that amount. So if it's in Swiss francs, find out how much it needs to be in US dollars, and whatever that is, add 10% contingency cost in case there's foreign currency fees. So use the justification line to explain. Then, in that kind of info-ready page that gives you details on this application process, there is a template form for you to download for article and author information. Again, we need the author's names and author affiliations. These are critical for us to do the review and to determine the eligible funding amount. And the names, order, and affiliations should be in alignment with how they'll appear in the published paper. And granted, you may not say who students are in the paper, but if you have students, this would be an opportunity to also show them as an affiliation so we know. And again, these affiliations should match the way that it would presumably appear in the actual published paper. For the abstract or article summary, you can use what you've got currently in your actual accepted manuscript. So this is a picture of what that form looks like. If you have more than 12 authors, feel free to contact EKU's Office of Sponsored Programs for additional information. We understand it's be laborious typing in a dozen or 20 affiliations or something along those lines. So we can give you some guidance there. But we need to know the affiliations. We need to know who the corresponding author is, because we treat that as important as being first author for being able to optimize the funding. An EKU author does not have to be the first author, but if they are the corresponding author, we have additional resources available. We need to know who are faculty and who are staff, because more EKU faculty and staff on a publication can actually, again, optimize the resources available, as well as who are current and former students. Before you actually go through this process and apply, if you haven't watched the earlier videos, we do encourage you to consider library resources and maybe look at some of the options through Oxford University Press, American Chemical Society, or American Society of Microbiology. The latter two may not be applicable if you're not in microbiology or in some of the various sciences. ACS publishes a variety of sciences beyond chemistry, so you might consider those if you're in one of the disciplines where ACS does have some publications. And Oxford University Press has a lot of different disciplines represented by them. So you could go back to the library's open access publishing page to look for potentially other agreements that might appear in the future. Now, what happens to the application once you've actually done the application? Members of the EKU Research Advisory Council, notably the Publication Support Award Committee, which is part of ERAC, they will be involved in the review of the actual application, and we will do a quick turnaround on the application, because we know publishers are not going to be waiting around to determine whether or not we need to move forward on publishing an article that's been accepted. So we guarantee you to provide a fairly quick turnaround within a week or less. If you have questions about any of the publication support workshop videos or the application, feel free to reach out to research@eku.edu, and your questions can be routed to the committee. They can be routed to me, jason.marion@eku.edu. We're all anxious to help you be able to increase the impact of your scholarship by getting it out there and available to the public and available to the research and scientific and scholarly communities that would benefit from it. So we appreciate your time, and I look forward to seeing publication submissions. Share this information with your colleagues if you'd like. Thank you for joining us.